that was just the worst day of my life. Hey there, welcome back to Limabean Living. If you guys are new here, my name is Emily. Welcome to my motherhood channel where I take care of all things mom. This is Noah. He's making his YouTube debut. And in today's video, I thought I would go ahead and share my birth story and my recovery story as well. So in one of my previous videos, I was 40 weeks, I think 1 day pregnant, and I had not yet gone into labor. And it was kind of stressing me out because I really wanted to have another VBAC. I had a C-section with my first child, Aubrey, and that was like 7 years ago. And then I was able to have a successful VBAC with my son, Jack, and I documented that whole process. So if you're interested in watching that, that is on my channel as well. And honestly, out of those two recoveries, I can't really say which one was worse. I had, different downsides, different things to deal with each recovery, but in my mind, having a VBAC is healthier. It's the more natural way of how ideally birth is supposed to happen, right? Like, we're not supposed to be cut open to have a baby taken out of us, but there are still downsides and upsides to both types of deliveries. And I can't say which one was harder for me as I look back on my experiences. The one thing that I was mainly nervous about if I had to have a C-section was that I had a lot of medical issues where I had to be readmitted to the hospital and I had to see a cardiologist. And I don't know if those issues were because I had a C-section or because some other issue. And that is one reason why I was really hoping for a VBAC this time, so that maybe I could avoid having those issues that possibly were because of me having a C-section. So as I mentioned, my doctor said if I didn't go into labor by that Friday, which would be 40 weeks and 3 days, that I should go in for a non-stress test in the hospital and then stay possibly for an induction, which is something I really didn't want. Well, Friday came and I hadn't yet gone into labor. And so my husband and I made our way to the hospital, got checked in. And before I was gonna get, all the monitors on me for the NST, I was like, okay, let me go use the restroom. And when I went to use the restroom, there was a little bit of bloody show. And I was like, oh, I know that this is probably common towards the end of pregnancy. And so I let them know that I had a little bit of blood, and this guy's heavy. So I let them know, and they, did a cervical check, and they said that I was, I think, 4 centimeters or 4.5 centimeters dilated, which was an additional centimeter than I was at my last check, and probably the reason for the bloody show. And the effacement and the positioning was kind of about the same, maybe 70% effaced. It's all kind of subjective. So I felt like there was a little bit of progress in me progressing naturally towards, going into labor naturally, but it wasn't substantial or this huge, leap from 2 days before at my prior appointment. But I was more open to an induction because of what my doctor was saying. And also, this probably is not the best reason to get induced, but we were getting closer to Thanksgiving, and a lot of the helpers that would watch Aubrey and Jack would be then, traveling soon. And I didn't want to have that added stress kind of in the back of my mind. If I go into labor on a certain day and then have to stay in the hospital a couple nights, that's gonna throw off someone else's plans, all because of me. And I know that having a baby, this little guy would be worth it, but I didn't want to, do that to somebody else. And so there was a part of me that was like, okay, getting induced on Friday would allow me to hopefully come home and give the people who are helping me time to go and do what they need to do in preparation for celebrating Thanksgiving. Like I said, not the best reason to go get induced, but I was 3 days past my due date, and the doctor did say that being induced before 41 weeks in hopes of a VBAC would be more ideal. So I went along with it, and I honestly can't remember if the Pitocin or the epidural came first. I want to say that they got me on the Pitocin a little bit, and then eventually the epidural came, but I don't remember. Either way, I was able to kind of breathe through the contractions as they came, and just really kind of focused on someone, in all these TikTok videos, and my feed was all about like giving birth because I linger on those videos. It was like breathe in and then breathe out the pain. Like imagine like that pain is exiting your body through your breath. And so that was just something that I was trying to visualize as I was breathing through. And for a period of time, like one nostril was more swollen and I could only breathe through one nostril. And your prayers, really helped me, because at some point I could just breathe. And my fear of having a bad cold in giving birth didn't end up happening. So thank you for your prayers on that, because those of you guys who have been following me know that it was a pretty bad cold, and it was not something I wanted to have to deal with. So anyways, before my epidural came, I really tried to like stand up or sit on the birthing ball, just try to kind of move around, because I knew that once you get the epidural, you're laying down. And I got the epidural in case I had to get a C-section. It's kind of recommended. It's a little bit easier. There's an emergency to have that epidural. So the epidural took a while, and I think it's because I believe the hospital we were at is a teaching hospital. So there may have been someone like learning on me, and it just seemed to take a long time. They asked Juan to step out of the room, and so like he even was getting nervous because he was like, this is taking a long time. He was worried that like, something had happened to me during that time, that he was outside the room and I was having that procedure done. But, it all went well, and I had to kind of flip on my sides or whatever because he was, showing signs of a little bit of stress or whatever. And so they had me moving around. So like, I want to say we got to the hospital around like 9 or 10 in the morning. Things were really, really progressing as the like afternoon went on. And he ended up being born at like 8 o'clock at night. And so in less than, 11 hours at the hospital, not even like 11 hours of being induced, he was able to be born, which compared to my induction, experience with Aubrey, since I went into labor naturally with Jack, her labor or my induction lasted over a 24-hour period from the moment I was induced to when she was born. I want to say it was like 32 hours or something crazy like that. And so, I think the fact that my body was kind of getting ready to give birth definitely helped, and just helped everything in addition to the Pitocin that was being given to me. So after getting my epidural, like I said, I was kind of, turning on the bed, trying to just move positions or whatever, but there really wasn't anything that was like too noteworthy of, like some big event that happened. When it was time to push, I could definitely feel the pressure, and we did 3 10-second pushes. So like 10 seconds of pushing, take like a breath, 10 seconds of pushing, take another breath. That third 10 seconds of pushing, he was out. So in less than a minute, I pushed out this little chunker. He weighed in at 10 pounds, 6 ounces. So the average of my kids now, but he's a little bit shorter. So Aubrey and Jack were like 23 inches long and he was 21 and a half, which is still big, but substantially shorter for weighing as much as he did compared to his siblings. So I was really proud of the fact that like, I didn't have to push for a really long time, and the fact that he's so big and I was able to push him out quickly. But there were some downsides to that. So unfortunately, I tore with Jack. With Jack, I had like a 2nd-degree tear, but With him, I have a 3A tear, which is worse and not fun. But also, because I pushed him out so quickly, he was, screaming and crying and stuff right from the bat. So we were happy to hear that. But when he was on my chest, he was making a sound that was concerning to the doctors. And so they said if he keeps making that sound, they're going to have to take him and, just check on him a little bit, maybe for more fluid in the lungs or something along those lines. And he ended up making that sound a little bit more. And so I didn't really get my golden hour with him. I got to hold him just for a few minutes on my chest before the NICU doctors had to take him aside and eventually take him to a separate room. And they were with him for 2 hours after giving birth, just to make sure that his breathing, was more perfect or whatever, it was better. And, he was good enough to not have to go to the NICU. So while I'm disappointed that we didn't get that initial full hour together, I'm glad that he was healthy enough after those 2 hours to come back and stay with Juan and I the rest of the time in the hospital. And so that was the one negative thing that I think happened to Noah in the hospital. As far as he goes, I want to say he's perfect, he's healthy, and I'm very grateful for all of the prayers for him, and I'm very grateful for all of the prayers for me. I'm almost 2 weeks out of giving birth, and I didn't think I was going to cry because as I was thinking about making this video today. Sorry about the poor lighting, but at night is just when I am able to film this. I guess, so okay, I had given birth, and he's either on me or off of me. They're pressing on my stomach, trying to get the blood out. I deliver the placenta, which Juan noticed, they seem to be tugging on the cord a bit. I don't know if that's common. He seemed to think that it should have been the placenta should have been released a little bit easier. But I gave 2 pushes and the placenta came out, which I had them weigh, and it weighed about 2 pounds, I want to say. So I, in total, lost, 12 and a half pounds in a few minutes, which was nice. But yeah, so I delivered the placenta, and then they started to stitch up my tear. And Juan said there was just a constant stream of blood coming out of me, which, like I said, I don't know if that's normal or not, but to Juan, it seemed a little concerning. And again, teaching hospital, I'm pretty sure they had a student practicing on me, stitching me up, and then they'd take out a stitch and then stitch me up again and have the doctor correct a mistake or whatever, which I don't mind in a sense, because that is how the next generation of doctors has to learn. You have to learn on somebody, and that I don't really mind. I don't know if I was really aware of it going into knowing where I was going to deliver. So I think I just needed foreshadowing of okay, this is, going to be my experience. But anyways, so they're trying to stitch me up. They're constantly dabbing up blood. So who knows what type of job was done in fixing me with this 3A tear. And then eventually the nurse was which my first nurse was amazing. And then she had to leave an hour before he was born, so she never got to meet him. But, my new nurse was okay, let's go, go to the bathroom after having the epidural taken out and the catheter and all of that stuff. And I was able to walk to the bathroom, and as soon as I sat down, I just felt so lightheaded. And I couldn't use the restroom. I couldn't stand up. I just I sat there holding the bar, and I was I just feel so dizzy. And so eventually they wheeled this thing over to me to have me just stand up, and then it folds beneath you so you can sit back down, to bring me to either a wheelchair or back to the bed. I think it was to my wheelchair. And they were going to bring me to my recovery room. And I get to my recovery room, and I'm still feeling, a little dizzy, lightheaded. And the nurse there offers to get me something to eat, and I'm oh yes please, because I haven't eaten all day. So I eat something, I feel a little bit better, and she's oh, let's try to go to the bathroom again. So I get up, I'm definitely aching and sore, And I get to the bathroom, and again, I feel just incredibly lightheaded. I can't move, can't get up, can't use the restroom. I just feel like so out of it, you know. So they're like, okay, well, let's get you back to the bed. So I get back on the bed, and they occasionally come by to press on my stomach, and a lot comes out of me. And then like they'd clean me up, they'd start to walk away, and I'd feel like a whole bunch more blood and like clots just come out, like jelly clots that who knows how big they were, like the size of plums or whatever. I could just tell like a lot came out. So I'd be like, more came out. And the nurse would come, wipe me up, start to leave, and then I'd feel more come out. And eventually, I want to say there were like 7 people in the room. Obviously, my epidural was wearing off, and I don't think I'm going to cry. But I've cried every other time that I've told this. I ended up bleeding so much. I want to say like my blood pressure was like 70 something over 50 something, or it was very low. And the doctor a number of times was elbow deep in me, scooping out from my uterus like Juan described as mango-sized clots. And it was so painful. I don't know if I've ever like screamed/moaned. I don't know what sound I was making, but I don't think I've ever made that painful of a sound in my whole life. One of the nurses was holding my hand. Juan had to stand like in the corner of the room. It was like 3 a.m. So it's not like I can like call my mom who's with my kids. I'm not gonna disturb her when she has her hands full. I tried calling like my aunt, and then I called my dad, and I don't think he answered. And then eventually like Juan was calling him. Juan eventually got hold of my dad, and I'm on the phone with him, like in between getting, you know, arms shoved up me and scooping out stuff. And I really thought like I could really die. I lost a lot of blood, and my poor dad, like, who wants to get a call at 3 a.m. from your daughter who's terrified? You know, the previous day there was a lot of good news in our family. We announced that Noah was here. You know, my dad is just super excited, and then he gets a call, you know, 7 hours later from his terrified daughter, you know, woken up in the middle of the night, and I could hear him tearing up. And that is not something that my dad does often. And so he prayed with me, and then the doctors had to take me away, and they were, I think, planning on doing like a DNC. So like I was brought into this other room. Apparently I looked very pale. All the nurses who came in and saw me later were like, you look a lot better. You look less pale. And so I don't know how pale I was, but obviously if I've lost, I think they calculated around 4 liters of blood, I obviously would be very pale. And before actually going into that room, I had Juan record me just telling my 3 kids that I love them in case I didn't make it. So they put me under, and I want to say it was like a half an hour procedure. I don't think it was a very long procedure, where they just cleaned me out. And as a result, for like the next day or 2, I didn't bleed at all, which, you know, typically after you give birth, you have period blood or whatever for weeks. And so I thought it was like strange that every time I tried to go to the bathroom, or actually finally successfully went to the restroom, that I wasn't bleeding. Eventually it did start, which then got me nervous because I wasn't used to it. So that's another thing. But they cleaned me out, and I guess my like lower front part of the uterus is extremely thin. And so the doctor, one of the doctors pretty much said like that I should not get pregnant for at least 1.5 years. And if I do, I'm definitely having a C-section. And who knows how early it would have to be, 36 weeks, 37 weeks, because that thin part of my uterus could just rupture. And so that was very disappointing to hear. I know that I'm getting older and I've always wanted a large family. And so if I wait that year and a half and I'm lucky enough to get pregnant, I'll be closer to 37, 38 when I would be giving birth, I'm guessing, which is getting, towards the end of that time in my life where I could bear children. And that could kill me. I could be leaving now 4 children without a mother. I'm obviously going to trust that whatever God has planned, that will be good. God is good all the time. What he allows, I'll let it be. I'll be happy with his will. But it also makes me a little sad knowing that this could be the last time I hold an almost 2-week-old baby of mine, Like I said, I always wanted to have a big family. And so just hearing that, it was just very discouraging. Because Juan and I really wanted to maybe try again soon and then have, 2 little babies close in age. And now it's just kind of scary to think my uterus could just totally rupture early in pregnancy and I could bleed out and die. And, my anxiety just goes that way. So anyways, I had my procedure done. I don't think they did everything that they thought they'd have to do to fix me up, but they fixed whatever was the problem. And I ended up receiving 5 bags of blood. And I never thought when I get there and they're like, oh, if you need a blood transfusion to save your life, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Never thinking this will actually happen to me. But yeah, I needed 5 transfusions. And my levels of, I think the hemoglobin or whatever, there were some levels that they plummeted, obviously, when I lost all the blood. And then after 3 bags of blood after my procedure, it was still this minuscule number. And then they gave me 2 more bags and the levels were great. And then they kind of dipped again the next day, which I guess is common when you receive blood. It's kind of certain numbers are elevated because of you just received blood, and then they kind of tame out, level out. And it was still a little bit below where ideal is, but the doctors didn't seem concerned. And we actually stayed an extra day in the hospital by choice because of our concern that, what if my blood levels continue to drop? Then I have to come back in a waiting room with a newborn, for who knows how long to be seen. It was just for more peace of mind, we wanted to stay an extra night so that those levels could be checked and that I was a priority and wasn't in a waiting room. I was also experiencing horrible pain in my lower left part of my stomach, which the doctors just kind of felt it's probably gas constipation that kind of comes with giving birth. But I was worried it was something else. And then luckily that has kind of gone away. So I'm hoping it's just, I'm attributing it to what the doctors, said the problem was more likely causing it. But those are all the main details of my birth and recovery story. Jack and Aubrey were able to come and see Noah in the hospital, which was a new experience for us since we had Jack kind of COVID times where they weren't allowing visitors. So Aubrey had to wait till we got home. And the kids were just so excited to see their little brother. And we eventually got home and I've been recovering ever since, but I feel much better. Obviously, I'm nowhere near back to normal. I still have a lot of healing to do, but I feel a lot better than I did in the hospital. So again, I just want to thank you so much for all of your prayers. It's possible that without them, I wouldn't be here holding my little baby. So I'm really grateful for all of your prayers. And I hope to continue to do more kind of sit down videos. I may just post once a week for these next couple of weeks. if I find myself falling behind on this adjustment period. So thank you for being, patient with me as I recover from probably the most traumatic experience of my life. Like I said, it's taken me almost 2 weeks to film this video because that was just the worst day of my life. So anyways, thank you. For those of you guys who are new here, again, my name is Emily, and I try to take care of all things mom on my channel. I like to bake and craft and organize and just kind of try to manage it all. So if you are into any of that, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you stick around and watch this little guy grow up. And if you guys liked this video, I don't know, it's kind of weird like to like a video of someone sharing how much they suffered, but if you can go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, that will be very helpful to my channel. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Woohoo! You've made it to the end of the video. If you didn't know already, every Monday and Friday, you can find motherhood and lifestyle content on this channel. And since us moms have to do it all, that may mean yummy recipes, easy DIYs, mom hacks, cleaning and organization, or just a combo of everything. Please know that you are loved and you are made for greatness, and I will catch you in the next one.